MnDOT and NCAT have started working together. Buzz Powell from NCAT and Ben Worrell from MnDOT have gone around to a lot of different conferences and meetings to talk about the partnership. Also, Mary Robbins down at NCAT has attended many of the same meetings to talk about the preservation findings. And I think as we move forward, we're kind of letting whoever is at a conference to kind of give a quick summary of what the partnership means, and how things are coming together. So I'd like to do that and thank Ben Worrell because he put this PowerPoint together. There's a picture of Ben and Buzz who have done most of the work, but to talk about NCAT and MnROAD, quick little introduction, describe the partnership, pavement preservation. We kind of have a preservation group and a cracking group, and how you can get involved. Quick summary of MnROAD, which is about 45 minutes from the office where I work. That's the existing Interstate 94. When we we also built a parallel 3-mile long section which takes the westbound I-94 traffic. We can divert it back to the original I-94 when we do our testing out there. So that's kind of what we call our main line. I think we're just a little under 1 million easels per year from the traffic on the interstate. We also have our low volume pavement for our local government type work. We have a 80,000 pound truck that runs there about 80 laps a day, so that's how we load the low volume. It's a closed loop. The MnROAD cells are 500 feet long, asphalt and concrete. We do a lot of rehabilitation work. And we're kind of getting to the end of our second phase. I'll talk about the cracking group and then future plans coming up in 2018. Benefits, so we've been able to generally put some decent numbers on the amount that we've saved from the work we've done at MnROAD, phase 1, phase 2. I hope we'd get some similar benefits during the third phase coming up. NCAT was established in 1986, so they have a 1.7 mile oval. Their test cells are 200 feet long, and they run about a 3-year cycle. So the first 2 years, they put 5 million easels a year on with their triple trailers. They run Tuesday through Saturday. That lets the workers get out there Monday to do a lot of their capturing of their distresses. So they call it a 3-year cycle. It's first 2 years they get those 10 million easels on, and then this summer the traffic doesn't run. That's when they did all their construction to the new for the new sections. Many different partners that have been involved in NCAT through the years. This is the cycle that just completed. So they've have had 5 3-year cycles. Now we're up to the 6th one. Yep. He jumped in there again. So the FWD testing, ARAN van, you can see, and there's Buzz down on his, I think his car kind of cart there for working on cars, but also working on pavements. An awful lot of detailed crack measurements. They've done a lot of great things down there with their FWD testing and looking at the different cells. Lab testing, they got a full lab and they're doing a lot of mixture testings throughout all the development of the work in the cells, the materials that are going to go down on the track. They do a lot of pre-mixing, running the entire mix through the plant before things get going. And here's our group of the NCAT workers there. So that's kind of a quick overview of the MnROAD and NCAT. But to come together to do the preservation work, NCAT had their Lee Road, low volume pavement. They just put preservation down on a high volume pavement, US 280 down there. But to really facilitate some high value research, cold and warm climates, Buzz has said that the board of directors at NCAT won't be putting any concrete down anytime soon, never. So we've got some of that we can look at up at MnROAD. We've done a lot of work informal in the past, but the NCAT folks came up to MnROAD. We went down there in October. We've kind of got this process being formalized. MnNOT's actually going to be a subcontractor to Auburn University, which runs the pooled fund for NCAT. FP2 and the National Center are also participating in the work. So really working on the strengths of each organization, agency. The professors that work down at Auburn University are just great. We're going to be generating a lot of data analysis. I think NCAT's going to do a lot of the analysis work that even from the data we collect as part of the partnership, using the same processes that they've already set up and established. Kind of the preservation group and the national cracking, or the cracking study. The preservation work will not be down on the actual MnROAD site. We've got a high volume and low volume section picked out where we will be constructing ourselves next year. The national cracking group, so the northern states that are in the pooled fund, we're going to put down some 8 or 9 new cells up at MnROAD next summer as part of the cracking study to look at mainly thermal cracking, which is our biggest problem in the north. Most of the work down at NCAT for the cracking study is going to be on kind of fatigue and top-down cracking issues, because the thermal cracking is not a problem for them. So should be interesting to see what comes out of all these studies. We all know the right treatment on the right pavement at the right time. And here's kind of what we're looking for. An important part of the preservation studies is realize we're going to build many different cells, but we're not comparing treatments. What we're going to try and look at is how is the life extension of the individual treatment measured or improvement, trying to find those life extending benefits. So you put a chip seal on the road, how much longer will that pavement perform than if it had, until it returns to kind of its pre-existing conditions. So not comparing all of the treatments to each other, but to the kind of life extending benefit. This is just some pictures from down at NCAT in Auburn, Alabama. So Lee Road, their test section goes into a quarry there. So there are empty trucks coming in, loaded trucks coming out. So it's quite unique in probably a factor of 10 in easels per year. You know, like 30,000 going in, 300,000 on the pavement coming out. Was 14 years old at the time that they started their test cells a couple of years ago. They've even got some overhead video that shows the different cells, takes a nice look at it. These are all the different test sections that were put down on Lee Road, and really the goal for the Northern Preservation Group then is to duplicate as many as these, almost all of them, up in Minnesota. We would use kind of the MnNOT specs. We would build them with kind of our emulsions, softer base emulsions, local available aggregate and things. But you know, NCAT does a chip seal, MnNOT does our chip seal. We've got a little more embedment. So there are some differences like that. But the important thing is that we want to build the treatments in Minnesota to perform as best we think they will. So we'll kind of follow what we've typically done up north here. And a lot of the hot mix asphalt overlays are 475 mixes, which we haven't been doing in the past, and they seem to have great performance. So I'm looking forward to see how the 475 mixes perform, which need to be put down with a really great tack. So tack's extremely important. So on Lee Road, all the distresses that are recorded by NCAT, the rutting, roughness, texture, friction. I do a lot of FWD testing. Subgrade moisture, which is kind of important. We heard Craftco talk about sealing cracks. Keeping the water out is going to improve the strength of your whole structure. So, some of these treatments have crack sealing, then a chip seal and different things, but the microsurfacing crack seal, then the overlays, they do a great job of sealing up the surface, which improves the entire strength of your structure. As kind of part of the partnership, here's what the members that were in the pooled fund for the 2012 cycle, that 5th cycle, and then this year with the kind of the partnerships, many of the northern states joined the pooled fund as part of the preservation group or cracking group. So the NCAT pooled fund is expanded greatly with our partnership. Kind of doing similar analysis type of work. They show their high volume road on US 280. Ours is going to be up on 169, kind of in central Minnesota, doing control and treated sections. We're going to work on, I think, some county roads, probably couple different ones to get all our sections in there. So quite a few treatments to be evaluated. Just another summary of, probably a couple different controls. Pick out a control that's in maybe the top better condition, a control that's kind of in the worst condition. Then these treatments will go on all the ones in between, and we hope to lay out the treatments in a manner that we would typically kind of apply them in the field. Putting the preventive maintenance type activities on the ones in better conditions, and some of the thinner overlays and things on pavements a little farther down the decay curve. Open graded friction course, one we've had a lot of discussions about whether we do that up north, because right now none of our DOTs are in the north are using the open graded friction courses. So US 280, I think about a little over 4.6 miles there, 1/10 of a mile section, so that's longer than the Lee Road type of work. Went down to NCAT and looked at some of the work as they were preparing to do that. They were doing some micro milling for the OGFCs when I was down there. Interesting, last day I was there, the first two were probably very nice and mild compared to a typical southern day, and on my last day down there, when I walked out of my hotel room, my glasses steamed up. I said, that happens to me in Minnesota winters all the time going in, but that was a nice tropical summer day that they're used to all the time, but oof, she was nice and warm. Minnesota locations, you can see the lower little star there is the MnROAD site, about 40 miles from kind of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and our preservation group studies are about 40 minutes north of MnROAD. So working on US Highway 169, our high volume, fairly close traffic. I think the US 280 down in Alabama. Our county roads will be more typical county roads. We won't have the high loading that Lee Road has with the loaded trucks. We've had set up some early meetings and talked about treatments and things every 2 weeks. We've kind of scaled that back a little as we're getting our program lined up and ready to go. Vance Brothers, who did all the work for the preservation treatments down in Alabama is going to come up to Minnesota and do the same treatments. All the preservation work, the hot mix overlay, hot mix materials put down by a different contractor, and we'll line that up. The cracking group, a lot of different disc shape compact tension tests, that's the DCT. Texas overlay tester in there, some IDT, semicircular bending beams, so quite a bunch of different tests will be run on the mixes to kind of validate, to predict, or select the best test to help predict cracking issues in the field. So there it is, you kind of know which one's the best. And here's the key part that says, related to field performance. So with NCAT putting their 10 million easels on their cells in a 2-year cycle, there really should be some good benefits there. And up in MnROAD, our 1 million easels per year at the MnROAD site. So that's the groups in the cracking group there. Some of the top-down cracking tests. So they've surveyed their partners in the pooled fund to look at the different tests that they're going to run down at NCAT on all the mixes, which they're probably really gearing up for right now. All the work on the test track has been completed. I think just within the last week, all the US 280 work was done. So the extraordinary effort that it takes to get all that, the cells reconstructed and the preservation cells in place is done, and now comes the work of catching up with all the testing. Northern group with that fracture energy, which is measured by the DCT test, they're kind of looking at filling in a matrix and fracture energy measured in joules per meter squared. And up in MnDOT, we kind of think having 400 joules per meter squared is kind of being 400 or above is a mixture that's going to be much less prone to thermal cracking. So we're trying to fill in a sort of high, medium, low type of matrix with different amount of wraps or recycled materials that'll help us develop mixtures that are resistant to thermal cracking. The cells up at MnROAD, kind of 16 through 23, are likely to be all reconstructed as part of the cracking group study. Maybe resurface cell 1 and 15. All those final details will be ironed out over the winter. So our timeline in this fall, which I guess fall for NCAT, in December, I believe it's 9th and 10th, all the states in the pooled fund will be going down to NCAT to meet, go through the work that was done this summer, kind of their sponsors meeting, so we get an update on all the activities that are down there and talk about the work moving forward. To join the pooled fund, and within the pooled fund, so there's one pooled fund that has always kind of been NCAT, and there's really about 6 or 7 different projects that states are now participating in. The preservation group, the states that joined, committed $120,000 per year for 3 years. There'll probably be a smaller amount that hasn't been, I think, set up yet for following years. The cracking group, the reconstruction of those cells is going to be a little more costly, so that's at a $210,000 a year. There's also still within the NCAT pooled fund, the work on the test track and quite a few different kind of pooled fund or agreements that you can join, the continuing monitoring and evaluation, the rebuilding of the test cells. So the NCAT pooled fund is a big pooled fund with a lot of activities going on there, and agencies. You can check it out if you're interested in joining the pooled fund. Also, within MnNOAD, we've kind of set up our Road Research Alliance, a new pooled fund at MnROAD, to look at some of the future work that's going to be going on at the MnROAD test facilities. I think it's Minnesota and Michigan are in there right now, but that'll be used to help reconstruct some of the other cells that aren't done during the cracking group. And it's always been kind of known in our office as the Buzz and Ben show, because they went around to promote and talk about both the NCAT test track and the partnership. And we'll be discussing a lot of the preservation findings as we move forward in the future. So, thank you very much.